Hey, everybody, it's time for another San Antonio Tech Dad podcast. My name's Alan Bush, and I'm here along with Drew Cox. Good to see
Hey,
you,
hey.
Drew.
Good to see you too, Alan.
Yeah, hey, welcome back. You've been spending quite a bit of time out of the state, out of the country, and it's good to
Yes,
have you
indeed.
back on board.
Yeah, it's been about a month since we've done one of these, and I feel at least partially, if not completely responsible for that, being so out of pocket it was not possible for me to join,
You
and
were in
giving
a
everyone else the excuse.
Yeah, you were in a signal-free zone, and then there was illness and life and work and all of those things happening. And it's okay. We do these when we can. We're busy folks, and we get to do these when we can. But I definitely want to hear about your trip to Seattle, to Vancouver Island in British Columbia. Tell us what you were up to.
So I have family that live on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. This is my third trip out there. I went once with my wife before we were married. I went once with my wife and my son while he was still under 2 years old. And then this trip, we were able to go. My daughter's 2.5, my son's 5.5. So he'll actually have memories he'll be able to take home from this trip. And my daughter had a great time. We got a lot of good pictures, and she had a fun experience with it. But this was kind of our first paying for all of the family, no lap children trip, where we went far away for an extended period of time, and we did so with as few bits of luggage as possible. And we are actually able to be gone for 20 days, so
Wow.
just shy of 3 weeks. So
Yeah, that's quite a long time.
yeah, um, many things played into that. One, we were able
Right.
to use points from things like credit card miles and business travel, and all that stuff was parlayed to cover the flight and the rental car. We were able to rent a third row vehicle, something that we've been potentially in the market for a long time. As parents, eventually trying to go on long road trips in a sedan, especially as parents of two with a dog of a reasonable size, that becomes increasingly difficult, not to say impossible, because we've been doing it, but uncomfortable. So we've been in the market for a third row vehicle. We got to drive the 2016 Ford Explorer. We got to enjoy its four-wheel drive and take it all over the Pacific Northwest, which we thoroughly enjoyed. However, some things we didn't enjoy as much. I drive another vehicle with sync technology for the internal Bluetooth connectivity bits, so you can have take a call on the audio system within your vehicle,
In
and you can.
theory, in theory, you can take a call on the Bluetooth sync technology in a Ford vehicle.
We totally did it.
I don't
A
believe
couple of times. We tried it more than a couple of times.
it. All right.
So the biggest problem is my phone, the one that we had the international plan on, has some horrific problems with its antennas. So Bluetooth has issues, and the GPS really has no serious idea where you are. It has a general understanding of you're probably somewhere in the um, upper left corner of the United States. So when driving, it may say, turn left here on this road. Oh, I'm actually not on that road or anywhere close to that road, so I couldn't turn left there if I wanted to. So all of those problems, as they were, you take them out of the equation. My wife's phone works fine. My wife has a 6S, I believe, an iPhone 6S, and it had no problems with Bluetooth. We used it just fine. But when you plug it in to charge it / make it available to the entertainment center and the entertainment system on the on board, and its Bluetooth is on, sync loses its mind, has no idea which input to use. You hit play on whatever media you're trying to play on the phone, and it comes out of the speakers of the phone or not. and then it doesn't come out of the speakers on the vehicle, and then you hit play on the vehicle, and then it pauses, and you get all out of whack. So sync needs to get addressed. However, the vehicle and the third row opportunities and the four-wheel drive and all those things came in very, very handy. We got plenty of room for our kids, plenty of room for our luggage. We didn't bring our dog, so she didn't get the chance to stretch out and enjoy that. But we put the car through its paces, and the tech is what failed. I was really disappointed in the way sync was structured, and the way it couldn't differentiate well between where you were trying to engage it via the phone or via the touchscreen or
Right.
via the wheel or via voice. Um, Depending on the combination of things in play, it was completely incomprehensible, and you couldn't really use it. So that was the frustrating bits. But that didn't really dampen our spirits. One of the things that we attempted on this trip was to listen to audiobooks in the car. We were going to do a lot of driving, so we
Yeah.
flew
Yeah.
into Seattle, drove up to Vancouver, and then up the interior coast. It's called the Sunshine Coast. It's British Columbia is beautiful. If you ever get the chance, anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, you should visit, especially coastal Pacific Northwest. British Columbia, though, is one of my favorite places on the planet. I will continue going there every few years as long as my finances hold out. But we drove almost to, I guess, 2,200 miles, 2,300 miles, all
That's
told on the
interesting.
trip. It's substantial, and a lot of that time was with the whole family. So we have an Audible subscription, and we pulled down a bunch of different classics. So books that I loved as a boy, things that I thought my children would be interested in, things that wouldn't be too far out of the realm of appropriateness, or that I remembered vaguely enough to find okay. And so pulled down a bunch of books, and once we got in the car and settled, I polled the audience, and we got a bunch of books. What do you want to listen to? And all my son needed to hear was the name Fang in a book, and we were listening to some Jack London.
Yeah.
So we listened to
So
White Fang, we listened to Call of the Wild, and then we listened to the Jungle Book. So
definite
Jack
animal
London,
theme there.
yeah, and very much a Canadian wilderness, Yukon kind of vibe to it as well.
For the first
Alaska,
two, at
West
least.
Coast.
Not so much Jungle Book.
Less so in Jungle Book. Actually, I learned a lot about Jungle Book listening to it. Rudyard Kipling has some famous characters like Mowgli and Baloo and some of those guys, but there's a bunch of short stories packed into to those books that cover all sorts of other things, some of which were appropriate. So anyway, check that out at some point if you're into it. We got to listen to some classics. I really enjoy providing my kids with the opportunity to stretch their imaginations, and TV kind of fills in some of those gaps. Movies the same way. They're still fun, but they leave less to the imagination. And audiobooks really paint a picture and teach kids that books contain or can contain all of this wonderful and interesting and compelling narrative and character and struggle that they can learn to crack if they can understand the basics of reading. And so my son is
Right.
about to go into kindergarten. We're going to be embarking on that journey here very, very soon. We read to him all the time already. I've read to him the entire Chronicles of Narnia. We're in the middle of the Two Towers in the Lord of the Rings series. And so he's already understanding this, but a lot of what we've read have been fantasy. So we've read Wizard of Oz and those kinds of things. And that's very much suspend reality, understand this narrative, whereas Call of the Wild and White Fang are very gritty, realistic, but they're novels, they're fiction novels. It's not like dogs are personified in that way. So it was really cool for them to get to enjoy that. We got to get through a lot of books. There were times when they would quiet themselves down. There'd be that typical kids skirmish in the back seat that has to be navigated while you're trying to navigate a large, fast moving vehicle. And with a tool like Audible, where you could just hit pause and play and hope that it worked on the sync platform, you
Yeah.
could wield that tool well to direct kids. And I could say, "Do you want to listen to this?" And my son would immediately stop what he was doing to antagonize my daughter. My daughter would, oh, yes, I do want to listen, and refocus. And it worked out great. So we use the heck out of our Audible subscription and audiobooks in general. And we had to travel a long way and go to a lot of places. Things are further and farther between as you go further and further north. And so it was a lifesaver for all the windshield time we ended up spending.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of audiobooks. I mean, I think that they're great. I listen to a lot of them myself, Audible subscriber, and I get a lot of them through the library as well. We've both read, I've read to my son, and I've also done the audiobooks with my son for the Harry Potter books. And we read the first two or three books together and then went on a trip. And I downloaded the audiobooks from the library, actually, the San Antonio Public Library, downloaded the fourth one. And, we were 3 chapters into it or something like that when we went on a pretty long car ride. And so we just said, hey, let's just do this. And now we can listen to this thing that we both appreciate, that we both really like. We can do it together, and we can all listen to it while we drive, and it worked out really well. So definitely a big fan of those. Definitely a big fan of the library. And you mentioned your son is just getting ready to start kindergarten. My son just finished kindergarten. He'll be starting first grade next year, and he is now officially a reader. He is reading anything he can get his little eyes on. And the public library actually has a summer reading program that is sponsored by the mayor. It's her summer reading program, and it's a pretty interesting, a pretty simple thing, really. I mean, it's read 8 books. If you're not a reader yet, have somebody read 16 books to you, right? It's something that kids can do.
So what's the payoff? I remember
payoff,
summer reading programs as a kid, and it was all driven by small ice cream cones and the like.
I know I used to get my fair share of Pizza Hut pizzas. Was usually the payoff when I was a kid, but now it is another book, which I think is great. I think that you end up with a reader at the end of it, and hey, let's give them something more to read. You get a book, you get your name on the Wall of Fame, right? And then the biggest thing, for the first couple of thousand kids that finish it, they get a free hamburger from Whataburger, which is definitely worth it.
It's very Texas.
Yeah, very much Texas. But then the thing that my son is so excited about, he is the most excited about. He is excited about a certificate signed by the mayor. Like, that is the thing that's motivating him more than anything else. He wants this certificate signed by the mayor, and so he's very excited about that. Really can't wait to get to get that certificate signed by the mayor. He's told everybody he knows that this is a thing that's going to happen. He's going to get the certificate. So he's read 5 of the books so far. We went and got him a library card last Friday, and he's just plowing through them. He's so proud of his library card. And so he's really excited about it. He's got his own library card. He's got access to books. I think that the checkout limit is 50 books. And he's like, all right, Dad, we've got 9 so far. I think we can get, 41 more books?
All right, I'm going to go this way.
Yeah.
You go this way.
Yeah,
we'll meet back at the end with all of our piles of books.
Right. It's like he's on supermarket sweep or something like that, just like shoving entire rows off of the shelf. And he's very excited. We kind of had to rein that back in by reminding him that.
Sorry, but Chaucer's maybe a little bit much for you right now.
Right. There are no more books for kids your age. You're not going to read War and Peace. But he's really excited. We had to kind of rein that back in, but and remind him that he's responsible financially for these books if anything happens to him. And
is he mowing lawns to build up his reserves, or?
Yeah, that's the thing. He doesn't quite have a grasp on how money works, or at least the his relationship to money and my relationship. So, but so we kind of had to rein him back on that. But yeah, we're very excited about that. I mean, there's so much there for him to do, and getting that love of reading instilled early is absolutely valuable. So, really want to get that done, and the San Antonio Public Library is a great library system. They've got summer programs for kids all summer long. They had two different events going on while we were there, just on Friday afternoon. And
Is this at the main central library?
no, this is the one up in our neighborhood,
Hmm.
and it's our neighborhood branch. It's a nice branch. It's for the summer camp that he's in. Uh, I think every other week they're going to the library, and so he can check out books and return them from any branch. So he's got
Hmm.
a card; he can take it with him, and he can check out books if he wants to. I don't know that I'm ready for him to do that on his own. I think that it's still something that I want to be a part of, because I mean, when it comes down to it, my wife and I are the ones that are financially responsible for those books. So want to make sure that we keep an eye on
I'm
that.
glad you
But
have a grasp of this concept.
yeah, we need to very carefully take care of that. But yeah, but I mean, it's the thing that he's already excited about it. He realizes what he can do. He's starting to realize too that he can download ebooks and audiobooks to I say his tablet. It's the tablet that that I own, that I let him use from time to time. Um,
And how clear is he on that? I imagine
we
that takes some
we've worked on
reminding.
that a lot actually lately.
Imagine it takes.
Yes. So whose tablet is that? It's yours. Okay, and
Right.
why do you get to use
So
it?
who's making
Because
the
you let
rules?
me. Yeah. So yeah, we have to remind him of that all the time. But yeah, it's yeah, he's excited about that opportunity as well, because there are some things that he's interested in that he can't read yet, but I can read it to him, or we can both listen to it, because like, frankly, the people that are paid to read those books do it very well. These are professional readers. It's their job. They do a very good job of it. Now, I like the opportunity to read it myself. I can kind of skim ahead just a little bit if there's something that I've forgotten about since the last time that I read it, that we want to paraphrase, shall we say. But
Potentially.
that's always a good option. But you're talking about the classics that are there. Those are available from just about everywhere. A lot of them are actually free
Hmm.
to get from Audible, or from obviously they're free from the library. I mean, won't get into the taxes discussion, but they're there for the taking. They're already available to us. So there's a lot of great opportunities out there to read the literature, to listen to it, to consume it in all the different ways. So very excited to see what we can find in the library this summer. Which, by the way, reminds me, one of the books that he picked up that I'm very excited to read with him is Frog and Toad Together, which is I think, a classic children's book. I'd say, was it
Is
Caldecott
it
or
Wind in the
Newberry?
Willows? Like, is it?
No,
Is it?
no, it's very similar to that, right? It's I can't remember if it is the exact characters from Wind in the Willows, which is another great book that I
It's
read
one
when
that
I
Cole and
was
I have read. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great little story. But this is just Frog and Toad, and it's just some other further misadventures of them. But I remember reading this when I was a kid, and just fun little stories about a frog and a toad that are friends. But it's a beautiful fun illustrated book, and I remember reading it when I was his age, maybe a little older. I don't remember exactly, but I'm really enjoying this opportunity to share some of the same things that were formative, for me, with Marshall, with him as we grow up, and some of the other things, with our younger son, we're kind of getting into that as well. But yeah, definitely, there's a lot more, at least reading wise, that I can share with my older son,
Hmm.
including Reading Rainbow, which the first season is available on Netflix. So that's one thing that I'm really excited to share with him. We watched a couple of episodes tonight, and just he's captivated by it. And
Well, yeah, Jordy's awesome.
yeah, it was a I had forgotten, exactly how how it ran, and but it's fun to watch. It's still interesting for me as an adult, 30 some odd years later, like literally 30 years later, watching episodes from 85, 86. But yeah, it's great. It's fun to watch. It's nice. Yeah, and it's one of those things that I remember watching when I was a kid and saying, "Oh, that's an interesting book. I want to see if it's available at the library the next time I go." And that's that's something that's great that our kids can now experience that as well. I mean, Sesame Street's still around too, so that's another one I really enjoy sharing with
Yeah,
the kids.
anything Henson's fingerprints remain on is probably worth checking out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will always be a Jim Henson fanboy.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's one of those things where I think that Reading Rainbow and Sesame Street and Mister Rogers and things like that, they gave me some of the start that I've had, right? They
Mhm.
really kind of set me up to appreciate reading, to appreciate learning. And that's something that I'm, really grateful for. And a couple of years ago at my last job, I actually had the opportunity to work with Sesame Workshop as they were rolling out the collaboration platform that I worked for. I was doing an implementation with them to help them get their partners in Afghanistan online. And that's one of the places that they were, able to go into and start to set up a program. And here I am, 30 years after I watched it, and it's after I watched it as a kid, and now I'm helping uh, a whole new generation of kids halfway around the world be able to get that same, leg up with reading, with science and math, and that's
Mhm.
something that was really meaningful to me, and I was really glad that I had that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I was very late to the reading game. My parents read to me from the time I was really, really young. We read big, serious classics. I remember Robinson Crusoe is one of the earlier books I remember my parents reading to me, and I've gone back and read it and just kind of had my brain melting out of my ears, thinking about the language that's used and how um, I guess there's just a lot of layers I probably missed early on. But once it came to actually learning to read, my dyslexia was a pretty big impediment. And I think things like Sesame Street, and in my case, comics. I read Far Side and Calvin and Hobbes, and even the illustrated works of Shel Silverstein. I was reading his poetry and enjoying his uh, far afield art. But those are the kinds of things that made reading accessible for me. And so with my son and with my daughter, we started by reading quite a bit to them. And as they begin tackling things like understanding how the alphabet works in concert with itself um, to put together language, we're gonna be on a pretty fun and potentially frustrating journey. We actually got these books called Bob books that are um, vowel specific phonetic workbooks. So they'll be the first book is all of the long A sounding short words. And so you get introduced to a couple of characters. They do some pretty standard menial tasks like Pat sat um, Pat sat on a mat. It's not terribly compelling, but as you layer on these new sounds and structures, um, it really helps kids to understand the basics of how these pieces fit together to make that greater meaning that they've mastered spoken, but they haven't necessarily mastered read or written. So we're working through that now this summer, and then as school gets kicked off and we're kind of hitting the ground running, we'll be doing much of what you're doing. But I'm a huge fan of reading. I've got a giant reading list that I haven't made nearly the progress I intended to at the beginning of the year. Last year, my goal was to read 13 books in 12 months. Not terribly aggressive, but I achieved it, and I'm way behind schedule to even keep up with that. And I increased my number this year. I was going to try to read 18 or 19, I think. Luckily, I'm going to be going to the beach this weekend, which is a great place to read, and hopefully I can knock out a couple books. But teaching my kids to read is really important to me, and I'm curious what things you continue to find being useful. I think Reading Rainbow is a great example of something that can continue to compel kids to find interesting things in books. Audible is one of those things. Bob books, just understanding the structure, like things we've already found. But I'm curious to see how this year goes and what other people find useful.
Yeah, I think that there's part of it, and I think that you really, really grasp the main idea behind Reading Rainbow. It wasn't so much to teach the kids the phonics, wasn't so much to teach them how to read, but to appreciate reading, to love it, and to really enjoy reading. And that's absolutely what it did for me. And I really hope that is one of those things, because once you're able to you know once you're able to appreciate reading, once you want to get out there and read those books, that's when it's not a chore. It's something that you get to do, something that you're excited about doing. And I think really that's the key. And whether that's because the kid loves comic books, or whether it's because they just love to hear about these different stories, whatever it is, like, find
Humans
that
are
thing.
programmed to love narrative. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
that's something that's goes back to sitting around fires pre-wheel. Humans want to know what has happened and want to imagine, and narrative is really compelling. We tell stories. That's what we do. So it's a naturally compelling thing, and to be able to find ways to discover new and exciting stories and narrative on your own is kind of a liberating and a whole new world. You open up so much possibility for someone when you teach them this skill that they can then take out into the world and really follow that curiosity as far as they choose to, which is a huge benefit, a huge tool to have in your arsenal, and can really be a game changer for people.
yep, absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, I mean, it's there's so much more ahead of us. I mean, our kids are just hitting first grade and kindergarten, and that's the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the sky's the limit. So we'll see where they go from there. But I'm really excited about it, and can't wait to see where we go with it. But I don't know. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about, Drew. What are we missing? Are we missing anything?
I guess back to my trip real quick. My daughter's still 2.5, and so we were concerned about long trips with her.
Yeah.
And we ended up taking her car seat onto the plane. That made she had to be restricted that way, and she spent 2.5 years now being restricted in a car seat. So she kind of just deals with it. Yes, she's not excited about being strapped in, but she understands what that means. So that made for a pretty decent plane trip. But we found logistically moving a car seat around an airport and keeping her close by and things along those lines. We'd seen there's a dolly system that you can buy. There's 2 or 3 different kinds.
Kind of turns it into a stroller.
Yeah, you can turn a car seat into a stroller. Well, we found we have a Britax car seat that has the little clip in with a push button releases straps on the sides, and we extended those as far out as we could, and then got a large carabiner and put that in the center. And so we clipped the carabiner, either side of those clips, into this carabiner to strap it around, and then the strap that goes over the back of a seat and clips into the back component, we put that over the top and then clipped it to the carabiner as well.
Over the top of a piece of luggage, right?
Yes, of a 4-wheel omnidirectional carry-on piece of luggage. So we
And it was
filled the
strong enough to
luggage.
hold the car seat and your daughter.
Yeah, yeah. So we
Nice.
kept everything tightened up enough that you had, once you tilted it, she would actually lean back and you could move around. It worked awesome, and it was free. We already had all the stuff. So if you find yourself flying with a small child and they do okay in car seats, it might be worth doing that. We've heard horror stories of people putting strollers and or car seats under planes and them coming out mangled messes or not
They
ever
lost
really making it
ours.
back.
They
They're
lost our car
expensive
seat one
too.
time. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
not fun.
good car seats are not a cheap thing, and a good stroller is not a cheap thing. So
I
we
should
were
say they
able to
didn't lose it.
use.
They briefly misplaced it, but it was still a
If you
not
land at
insignificant
your
inconvenience.
destination where you want to leave there and go enjoy whatever's around, you
You
don't want to
can't.
be stuck there because they did
Right.
not deliver the thing that you have to use by law to provide safety, basic safety to your child in a vehicle. That just doesn't work. So we kept it with us. We also have an amazing booster for my son. It's called a Bubble Bum. It's an inflatable booster seat that is it's very very compact when you deflate it, and we could just throw that in our luggage. So both of our kids were able to ride safely in a vehicle that we did not own or pre-assemble any component of before the trip. We just able to show up, load up, and go. And it worked out really, really well. Two car seats would have been really unmanageable. Um,
I can't even imagine because I mean, then at that point in time, you are carrying everything for everybody, and I mean
yeah,
that's why we ended up
right.
putting things underneath. Because I mean, you're looking at two adults carrying two car seats and four carry-on bags. I mean,
Well, if
that's
you're carrying four car seats in my solution, you have two carry-on bags, two car seats, and then whatever personal items. So that's impossible. Because we didn't have lap children, we had to buy four
hmm
seats, and then one of those seats had a car seat in it. The other one had the booster, or didn't have the booster. It had the son who would be using the booster.
right,
That
right.
booster was in the carry-on luggage, and then everybody had their own backpack. That meant that the kids could have stuff to entertain them as well as snacks and stuff like that in their backpack. If the altitude started getting to them, their ears were causing pressure, you could bust out um, a fruit leather or a granola bar or a drink, get them working that jaw, and that would usually take care of the issue.
hmm
It worked out really well. They could bust out the books that they had packed, play with the stuffed animals that they had packed, and then we had some other prepackaged stuff like stickers and coloring books and that kind of thing. That in case of emergency break glass, we had them in our backpacks as
It's
parents.
important to keep
Yeah,
those around.
yeah. So they would exhaust their resources, and we had reserves. Worked out great. Um, Flights are already a little bit brutal with kids, but a little bit of prior planning really, really paid off for us. The flight up, we had a connection. The flight back was direct, which was glorious. It was longer, but it meant that it was just the one long haul, and you knew when you landed, it was over, you were done, and was well worth it.
You don't have to worry about dragging kids and bags across the airport trying to get to your plane. And there's yeah, well, and I mean the thing that I like about your improvised stroller car seat carrier is that it's a little more socially acceptable than a leash to put a kid in a stroller, right? So it's
We
you have her contained.
we started many a conversation with that one little solution because we flew Southwest as we do, and the way Southwest works, uh, all seating is self-selected. So they let you on in groups, and you sit wherever there's an open spot. That there's three groups. There's the A group, B group, and C group. A goes first. It's a group of, I believe, 30 or 50. I think it's 50 or 60. So yeah, it's 60 per A, B, and C. All the A's go, and then all of the families go after that, no matter when you check in, and
Mhm.
then the B's and the C's. So we came with a family. There were other families also traveling, and so everybody would kind of group up. Um, the A's would all go, and the families would be gathering, knowing that this is how it works, and they would see, oh, that's awesome. That idea is way better than my idea, or I bought this thing and I wish I hadn't now, or next time I'm doing that, or show me exactly how this works. Um, and then going through security, it was also one of those you're kind of just walking and people are talking in the turnstiles, and then they look down and like, oh, there's a kid there. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, we made we got some conversations started. So a good way to meet people.
Does she fit in the
And
carry-on bin?
are you referring to my daughter?
Yeah. I mean, that's
Technically, yes, she does fit in the
there.
carry-on bin. I did
You
not
bought the seat, so you might as well
tempt
use
it.
it. I'm just saying, like it's an option. You got it. You got the option, right?
So it is also a benefit that when you travel with children and people get to choose their own seats and the plane is not packed, typically people don't want to sit with you. So
Yeah.
that only worked out for me once. There were 3 legs of our journey, 2 on the way up, 1 on the way back, but it does work out pretty well.
That is nice. That's nice to have. Very nice. Well, good. I'm glad you had a great trip. I am still insanely jealous of your Instagram feed from that time period.
I strongly recommend the Pacific Northwest. British Columbia is
Beautiful.
gorgeous. We spent
Beautiful. It's so green.
a couple of weeks there, and then we spent a few days on either end in Washington. We have friends that live on Whidbey Island, and it's a little bit different vibe, but still glorious. The one thing that we know we want to do on the next trip, we do this every 2 or 3 years since we have family there, is go to the San Juan Islands. So on the way back to the States, we took a ferry from a place called Sydney which is in Vancouver, or in Victoria on Vancouver Island, to a place called Anacortes, which is in Washington. But we stopped in Friday Harbor, which is in the San Juan Islands, and by just stopping there and by kind of weaving through some of the San Juan Islands, that's certainly a place that moved up on my list of places to go visit. So you may have very different opinions from me on what you should do for fun, but if you look at the feed and you see the things that I did and thought were fun, the San Juan Islands should also be on your list. It's definitely a place I intend to explore a little bit.
There you go. That's a good tip. Yeah, definitely, definitely good stuff. So, all right, well, I guess that's a good place to wrap it up. It was another Tech Dad podcast. Let's do this again soon. Hopefully, we don't have to wait a month this time to get it done. But
I have no reason to believe we will.
All right, well, that's good. That's good. All right, thanks, Drew. And I guess on that note, we'll say goodbye and see everybody next week.